One Piece is finally back after what seems like ages. We've had a ton of breaks riddled over the past 3 months. We have a great chapter today, so we have the full spoiler breakdown for you, full summary. Let's get into it. So chapter 1136 starts off with the cover page of Yamato's pilgrimage, of course, continuing it. This is volume 22 of that now. Hold'em leads Yamato, Tama, and Speed to a secret base. Yamato is forcing him to lead the way while Tama is riding on Speed. The roof of the base is shaped like Who's head. Now, this cover story really hasn't had many things of note that's transpired, but the fact that the base looks like Who's head may lead us to finding out the fates of the Tobiropo. Hopefully, we get that resolved, and maybe it even leads to Kaido and Big Mom's fate being revealed at the end. We'll see. This chapter starts where the last one ended, as Luffy enjoys eating Moose's meat. Yes, that's what it says. I don't know what's going on there. But Jarl explains that most humans don't get to come up to the Sun World because humans usually arrive to the island, get scared off by the underworld. They think that that's all that Elbaph has to offer, that's the main island, and they run away in fear. We see the Straw Hat crew is enjoying themselves at a party. Robin, Chopper, and Frankie are not there. Many giants are interested in the appearances of Jinbei and Brook since they have not seen other races. And Usopp tells the giants tales of their adventures, like when he defeated Oars. And as he mentions Oars, a giant says that Oars is a legendary fierce warrior among the giant race. And Road is forced to apologize to everyone by Gerd, but he secretly enjoys being forced by Gerd. I love Zoro's line here where he replies to Road's apology and says, "If Usopp didn't stop me, your head would have flew already." That man is not playing no games. Road says that every giant's dream is to become the sun god and rule the world. Hearing that, many giants start fighting over this and disagree on what the meaning of sun god truly is. Some believe he's the god of liberation, others say he's the god of destruction, and even one giant said he's the god who laughs. Jarl says that in Elbaph mythology, called Hali, or potentially Harley, the truth about the sun god is written in an ancient language that no one can translate. So there's been many interpretations. According to the myth, the world has already been destroyed twice. So this makes a lot of sense. Things get lost in translation. People take interpretations for things. We even have, like, when you're scaling One Piece, a lot of people take different interpretations to scaling. So everybody consumes what has been passed down differently. It's cool to see this kind of realism there. While Jarl talks, we can see an ancient picture of Nika that appears in Elbaph mythology. The picture is similar to Nika's silhouette that we saw when Who's Who and Jinbei were fighting. Sun God Nika had long and curly white hair and had white clouds floating around his neck, like Luffy of course in Gear 5. He also wore a loincloth and held a sword in his shield. Mihawk victim. Jarl says whether he's going to be a hero who keeps the world from ruin or a destroyer who brings about disasters, one thing is certain: he always appears when the world is about to greatly change, and that's why those in power feared the appearance of Nika. We knew this was going to be the case in Elbaph as soon as we saw Dory and Broggy talking about the tales. We were going to get a ton of Nika lore, but I actually like where it goes here after this, as Luffy finally for the first time is like kind of forced to come to the realization of like, oh, so that's what everybody's talking about. Luffy says, so he is Nika. He must be the guy Bonnie was talking about. And at first you're like, great, they're just gonna keep playing this up where like Luffy has no idea that he's supposed to be this generation's Nika. But it keeps it going with Jarl saying, but since he's the sun god, those seeking hope look to him without exception. It is said that Nika is a figure in pure white, enshrouded by white clouds, and he appears with thunderous laughter. This might be a top moment of the chapter for me because I can't go on with Luffy not understanding what people are talking about with this anymore. He has the moment where he says, ah, that must be what everyone is referring to when they said I look similar to him, but I have nothing to do with that god. So of course it's not a full acknowledgement of like the fact that he has the Nika fruit, but we don't really need that. It is what it is. He at least understands that he looks like Nika at this point. Jarl says that what happened with Harold and Loki may be a result of them trying to become Nika themselves. Luffy asks everyone whether Loki is a good person, and all the giants are shocked, so they explain all the pranks and chaos Loki has caused in the past. That aligns with something Luffy would do. He would perform pranks as well, chaos. I don't think Luffy would have a problem with this. I've talked about before in some other videos that I do think Loki will end up being a good guy when all is said and done. They kind of highlighted that last chapter with the Mosa or Shaggy person he talked to that made reference to it. And we're peeling back the layers on his motivations more and more. I think by the end of it, at the very least, he'll be a gray character. Some of the giants say he's the accursed prince. In fact, King Harold received a prophecy foretelling that he'd be killed by his son even before Loki's birth. Shortly after his birth, he killed the lucky horse of the royal family, and Loki was born in the same year when Linlin killed the giant legendary warrior Yorl. We've already seen this and had this revelation to us back in Big Mom's backstory. They mentioned that Loki was born in that time. Natural disasters rained upon this country one after another. Even the queen passed away 1 year after Loki's birth. He made the underworld his playground. He slaughtered and tamed the ferocious beasts with his overwhelming strength, and then he unleashed them into the villages, all while he was just 10 years old. Setting things on fire and destroying everything, his pranks have endangered our lives more times than we can count. With his authority as the prince and his terrible personality, you can imagine the hell this place was when King Harold was away. The plot thickens on him. Again, you can believe that he's going to be a villain. I do think it's likely that Luffy or Zoro or one of the Straw Hats fights with him initially, but by the end of everything, I think that he will be an ally to Luffy in the wars to come. Jarl continues and says he's got a sword in his head from trying to stop Loki from killing his father. Then after killing King Harold, Loki went out to sea to cause chaos. But he was then captured by Shanks 6 years ago and returned to Elbaph. So does that mean Loki stabbed him in the head? That's what I assume, unless it's like one of Loki's subordinates, but we don't know about any of them. But it does seem like Loki going out to sea might mean that he is in fact a pirate. Of course, we're waiting on that confirmation, but the fact that he was captured by Shanks is really cool, and it's really awesome confirmation because a lot of people had speculated that Shanks becoming a Yonko 6 years ago may be correlating to Loki's imprisonment. Now we know with absolute certainty that Shanks defeated Loki at sea, seemingly one-on-one. It could have been with his crew, but it's probably a one-on-one scenario. And he returned him back to Elbaph, to which they imprisoned him there. So it was not all the giants plus Shanks that took to beat him, like some people have already been spouting. It was simply Shanks that beat him. And the translations that I've talked about before in some of my other Loki videos mentioned that he almost escaped his imprisonment. It wasn't that all the giant warriors were needed to defeat him. He almost escaped his imprisonment, and that's what it took all of them for. So it makes Loki look way better now that we basically have confirmation that that translation is accurate. Still have to get full context on it, obviously, as well. It might have been a scenario where when Shanks dropped him off, he was just chained up. He wasn't chained to the tree, and then all they meant to fight him. We'll see. Luffy is very excited to hear Shanks' name. As always, while the giants talk about Loki, Zoro is observing Luffy and thinks he acts a bit unusual. So they have a talk in private on the outskirts of the village. I love this. Captain, vice captain type timing. Zoro says, I thought you were being unlike yourself, so that's how it is. But we are talking about a Kingslayer disliked by the entire country. You shouldn't trust a single word out of his mouth. So of course, we skip the initial dialogue of Luffy explaining his plan. And I love that Zoro's always keeping Luffy in check. He's always making sure he's doing the right thing. He makes sure he's not taken advantage of, just like with the Usopp situation. When Usopp turned his back on the crew, he made sure Luffy didn't just accept him with open arms. He made Usopp apologize first. This is another one of those moments for me, making sure that Luffy doesn't go into this moment too haphazard, despite the fact that he's our Yonko and can clearly handle himself. He doesn't want Luffy to be taken advantage of, and I love to see that. Luffy says, but he said he knows where Shanks is. Do you know how much I want to see him? And Zoro says, this is what allows other people to take advantage of you. Luffy now is angry and says, so you're saying Loki doesn't know? He's getting a beating if that was all lies. So I love all the dialogue top to bottom, but what it also tells me is that back in Wano, when Shanks used his haki on Green Bull, Luffy said that the haki seemed familiar. Now, a lot of people took that to mean that he knew with absolute certainty that Shanks was there. This dialogue could make you question that, because given how desperately he wants to see him, it would have made sense for Luffy to immediately want to jump on the ship and lay chase to wherever Shanks' haki was stemming from if he 100% knew it was him. And at this point, I kind of believe that like Luffy just was reminiscing on Shanks, but I guess he didn't know what truly happened. Zoro continues and says, based on what the others said, Loki might be lying, but it's impossible to say unless he personally goes to meet him. As they're conspiring, they get caught by Nami. Nami says, I was wondering what the two of you were up to. Do you really think you can reach anywhere without me? Zoro says, listen up, Luffy. We'll go get the key to the chains, but leave it to us to see what Loki is up to. So Luffy, Nami, and Zoro now are on a mission to go get the chains and go to Loki to free him, setting them up directly to be in contact with the two Holy Knights that we'll see in a minute. And also Zoro personally wanting to come to the conclusion of what Loki is. Are we getting Zoro versus Loki? This could get wild. I don't know what's going to transpire, but I'm hyped. Luffy says, got it. Thanks, guys. But why is this guy here? And we find out that Road is actually there with Nami, rowing the boat that they're on, and he has been turned into Nami's personal servant, her personal servant number 3, after Zeus being servant number 1 and Sanji being servant number 2. He was just electrocuted by her again, but he's not upset about it. He's actually saying, it is my utmost honor, Nami, since we are both navigators, maybe we'd. And it seems like he moved closer to her, and she said, don't ever try to close the distance again, and he says, of course. So Road helping them, taking them on their journey, might lead to Loki getting free and destroying Road. That might be the first person that gets victimized. But Road also might go with Nami because Nami has ulterior motives here as well, as she agrees to take Luffy and Zoro to get the key from the castle, but Nami's true intention is to get the treasure from the castle. So who knows if she stays in the castle and gets the treasure while they leave to go to Loki, or if she actually gets the treasure and then goes with them to Loki as well. We'll find out, of course. If they go with them, Road might be victimized first, like I said. Now we cut to the underworld, where Hooded Shanks and the Hooded Woman, the two Holy Knights, arrived to meet Loki. We find out that the reason they came there was actually to recruit him to the God's Knights, and Loki laughs at them and refuses. He says that he doesn't want to become scum, and then he asks whether the two of them are celestial dragons, but they don't say anything. We don't find out Hooded Shanks' name yet, but we can confirm it's at least not Shanks from the information we got earlier in the chapter. Some people speculated that it still could be Shanks. But since Hooded Shanks asks the woman what information they have about Loki here, we can deduce that Shanks defeated Loki. If this guy was Shanks, he'd know about Loki's weaknesses because he would have defeated him. So it's a clearly different person. And the woman replies that all the agents they sent to Elbaph got attacked by a giant crow and disappeared, so they have no information about Loki's weakness. We finally get the reveal of the Hooded Woman's name and her appearance as she takes off her cloak and we see her full design. Her name is Gunko, a Japanese word that means army child, and she's a member of the God's Knights. No name or full design of the Hooded Shanks, as I mentioned, and Gunko wears a cap with goggles similar to Koala's cap, a blazer with long sleeves, and a pair of boots. We can see her right eye now as well, and it is white on the inside, black on the outside, the opposite of her left eye, and she has bandages on her arms and legs. As we get a display of her powers, she transforms her long sleeves into bandages with an arrow form, I guess, and she can control them freely. So we got a little hint toward that last chapter with her attacking the one giant that was in the castle. Now we get a little bit more of a display on this. It's going to be hard to understand what this truly means until we actually get the panels, but interesting to say the least. We knew she was going to have some kind of bandage power. Does that mean she has like the bandage fruit, or is this something else entirely? We'll find out. And Gunko talks very dismissive to Loki and says, well, I let you talk for a bit and all I witness is a lack of manners. Perhaps I should erase you. And Hooded Shanks says, don't be hasty, Gunko. That tells me he's probably in charge. As they are talking, a giant wolf appears behind them from the forest, and Loki starts laughing and says, eat her, wolf. And Gunko says, hey, you're getting too close. And she uses her ability to wrap up the wolf's neck and seemingly hangs him in the air while Loki screams for his friend. We don't know what she's hanging him from or if this bandage is just suspended in air. Loki screams out, wolf, and Hooded Shanks says, would you change your mind in exchange for that creature's life? And Loki drops one of the hardest quotes we've gotten in One Piece, where he says, so that's the deal you want to make. Well then, wolf, that is sadly your fate. My friend, rest in peace. Of course there will be anger and sadness, but a warrior doesn't lose his calm in the presence of death. I shall swallow this rage and destroy the world. Monster, dude. I can't wait to see what this guy's capable of. A Zoro and Loki fight would feed generations if that was his main fight for the arc, and then they could have mutual respect after, and maybe that's how Zoro can come to know his intentions, and maybe this guy even, joins the fleet or something. I'd love to see this guy fight anybody, really. Luffy, could be anybody. We have the fake Shanks here. That could be Luffy's opponent. The guy that's a silhouette is still at large. We have so many things that are possible, but this quote really got me hyped up for him. We've seen Zoro with similar sentiments talking about Luffy shouldn't have been concerned about Vegapunk's death. We've had him say similar things, that he can't be worried about death. So they're very similar in a lot of ways. Wonder if that's going to be played up on. Hopefully so. But I think that this is a great chapter, and the best part about it is no break next week. So hopefully you guys all enjoyed the video. Of course, shout out to Pew Peace for posting, and Read On Twitter for coming up with the full summary. I will see you guys in the next one, and make sure to subscribe.
The All-Father demands it.